Welcome to Bootstrap Businessmen, the podcast devoted to the aspiring entrepreneur on a shoestring budget. Here are your hosts, #1 best-selling fitness author Dale L. Roberts and the Midwest's best, Kevin S. Allen.
Right, we are live, Bootstrap Businessmen. I am always excited. Anytime I say this, it seems like I'm repeating myself, doesn't it, Kevin?
Oh no, you're just always excited, man. It's just
I'm excited,
regular.
yeah.
It's
Except for when somebody wakes me up with scalding hot coffee. In that instance, then I'm not excited. I'm usually pretty mad. But that hasn't happened since my childhood, so I think we're pretty good. But today, really, actually, I am excited because I actually have somebody. And this is great because I just literally met him person to person for the first time about 10 minutes ago. So it's really kind of nice. We've just really been doing a lot of communicating via the internets, the interwebs. And he actually was a person we got in touch with each other through Audiobook Creation Exchange. And we've shared this on previous podcasts. And now we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth from the other end of things, because we've talked about self-publishing, but now we get to see what's on the other side of the curtain. So we get to see exactly who the wizard is. So in any event, it's my honor to actually introduce Maurice R. Cravens II. This man is an exemplary voiceover talent. He brings 10 years of experience to the table. So Maurice, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to be here and look forward to talking all about what we do in the deep, dark world of voiceovers. So if you've got any questions, feel free to fire them my way.
Nice. Yes. Man, I forgot to turn on the Q&A feature. Sadly, I won't be able to get some from our audience this time around. Apologize, audience. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, leave your questions in the comments section, and I'll try to catch up with that on a regular basis. But in the meantime, Maurice, it's actually spelled like Maurice, but it's pronounced like Morris. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lifelong struggle trying to clarify that, but it's for the best. Absolutely. It's a good name. It's a strong name. It's one I've been tasked with carrying, but it's always a pleasure.
So you have to go back and constantly correct people on that then.
Well, it's par for the course, but that's one beautiful thing about working over the internet and communicating via email. A lot of times you don't have to clarify things, so the fact that we're here today, it's kind of an opportunity for me. I mean, it's the first time in years that I've actually had a chance to tell the story of the name. So.
Nice. So now anymore, if there's any kind of discrepancies, you can always just send people to the first 5 minutes of the Bootstrap Businessmen podcast and be like, pronounce it like that.
This is the most powerful referral tool you will ever have, is simply clarifying my name. So you're welcome.
Excellent. Very good, man. I can tell we're going to definitely have a very fast hour. So I definitely want to jump into the thick and thin of things. But very first thing is we want to know a little bit more about you. So tell us a little bit about your background and, of course, what it is that you do today.
Well, my background is pretty similar to many other folks out there. I've worked in the corporate world for, 15, going on 20 years now, simply working the day-to-day jobs. And much like many of your listeners, I've always had kind of the itch to work on a talent that I've been graced with. And it's not to say that I'm any exemplary person. It's just that by chance I ended up with a voice that's fairly distinctive and it's good for certain pieces of audio. Now, of course, you've got to put food on the table. So it's hard to bootstrap things right off the bat when you have to do that and you have to provide for a family. So what I've done is organically throughout the years, and over 10 years now, I've been kind of piecemealing together some experiences with voiceover work, be it e-learning or audiobooks as I'm doing today, to a point where I am now where I'm really trying to make that pivot, that focus over to doing this on a full-time basis. So it's pretty exciting. It's a great and nerve-wracking time, but I am very thankful for the experience I've had to lead me here. And make a go of it.
Yeah, it's you're really good at it, and I think anybody that's either watching this live or listening to this on the podcast can definitely tell that you have a voice for radio.
Definitely not the face for it, but I do have the voice. So.
I wasn't gonna go there by any stretch. So, I mean, it, I need a better idea. What exactly created like this shift to where you wanted to do this? Because I mean, obviously, you didn't just wake up one day and go, "I want to start reading stuff on air."
Well, yeah, and everyone's going to have that aha moment. For me, like I said, there was always the itch to do more. I've always had the opportunity here and there to do project work and to, make a go of a little side income. Some people would call it beer money or whatever. But obviously, you want more. You want more in life to be able to utilize the talents that you've been given to make an impact, and in our case, of course, a financial impact to where you can support a family, support yourself, and enjoy doing it. Everyone over the course of working in the corporate world will come to that realization eventually that you're working for someone else, and you're playing by someone else's rules, and you're living by someone else's ethics to do it. There's a lot of purity of mind and purity of spirit in being able to take the time to answer to yourself and to answer to your family and to let them hold you accountable and live by the morals that you have, and not by the morals and ethics of someone that wants nothing out of you but a product.
That's just so true. So you've made reference to family. So you're a family man then.
I am. I've got a beautiful wife. Her name's Sarah. We've got a wonderful son, my stepson. His name's Jackson. He's 8. Amazing kid. And I've learned so much from him, and making this pivot to where I'm focusing on this work more on a full-time basis has really opened my eyes and given me the opportunity to be present and be there. It's the dream that all entrepreneurs and all self-starters look for, and fortunately for me, I've been able to live it.
Nice. That's really, really good, and it's so important that I wanted to kind of hopefully paint a picture for some people, because one of the issues that some people come up with is they'll usually say, "I don't have time to start X project," or "I don't have time to do this or that." So it's very clear that you've not only carried a full-time job, but also you're able to spend time with your family, and we'll get into this hopefully very soon. Is balance a lot of voiceover projects.
Yeah, absolutely. And what people look for most in their entrepreneurial efforts is the flexibility, the home time. At least that's the case for me, and that's what I look for. Everyone has a goal or a target that they want to achieve by taking on the mantle of working for themselves. For me, it's the family time, it's the home time. That is the ultimate, most important thing for me. Money's great. Don't get me wrong. Everyone loves money. Like I said, you've got to put food on the table. But for me, the most important part was spending the time with the family. Now, to get there, like I said, over 10, 15 years, there's been piecework here and there, and it's building the expertise, building the know-it-all, the how-to do it. A lot of people can bootstrap things much, much more quickly. And certainly, the entry level or the threshold for voiceover work to get across that first step is a very low one. I mean, probably comparatively on a financial basis with any other effort that's out there. However, there is a great deal of investment in capital other than financial. It's your own personal capital. It's developing your skills and taking the time to do that. And that's what that time over the last 10 to 15 years has really provided for me, has been the opportunity to hone my skills while still providing for my family.
Nice. So you've made a reference to the full-time job. Of course, you're still in this job, and what kind of line of work is this?
Well, actually, I've pivoted out, and now I'm doing this full
Congrats.
time now. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's nerve-wracking. I wouldn't say congrats just yet, but the help wanted signs are out, and I pay attention every day just in case. But what I would say is that making that pivot and taking that leap is nerve-wracking, but sometimes it's necessary. And you have to be prepared. You have to have saved. You have to be ready to do that, and have the means to do that. Because and excuse me, as we're getting ready to speak about here in a minute, oftentimes when you're working on an audiobook or with ACX, the audiobook creation exchange, to be an example, as a voiceover artist, you're not getting paid out of the gate. A lot of times, you're actually working for a share of the potential royalties of a book that you're producing. So, you're not getting immediate payment. You have to be in it for the long haul and in it to build residual income. So once a person has made it to that level where they can take a couple 3 months and really give it a good shot, it's a freeing feeling, as nerve-wracking as it might be.
Yeah, I don't. How do you feel about that, Kevin? Because I know that you had a situation where you went from your full-time job to suddenly being an entrepreneur.
Well, there's a few years of becoming the overnight success, right?
Absolutely.
Well, honestly, it's nerve-wracking. There were nights, there were actually days. I don't know if you've had the same feeling. I didn't feel like eating.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sleep. You know what I mean? You just wanted to push 25 hours in a 24-hour period just because you wanted to make things work so much, to take care of your family, take care of yourself, and honestly, just to be on your own. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I completely agree with you. Leaving that, you definitely have to have money set aside. Now, for our listeners, what would you recommend as a good buffer? 3 months, 6 months?
Well, I mean, the rule, if you look at any personal finance teachings or recommendations, and I'm sure many of the folks on here are familiar with Reddit. There's a subreddit called Personal Finance, and 90% of the people on there are going to say have a 6-month emergency fund built up, and if that's what you need to make the leap, that's what you need. But each person is going to be able to make that own determination of what resources they need. Obviously, for a single person in a small apartment, it's not going to take as much money. Your expenses are going to be lower. As long as you've got the means and the opportunity to do what you want to set out to do, go for it. But with a family involved, you've got to have a little bit of a cushion there, be it a very, very understanding spouse that can work a job themselves, or hopefully you have that financial emergency fund or financial savings set aside that will allow you to facilitate it. And also, you still need to have a very supportive and understanding spouse that's willing to be on your side when you're trying to accomplish what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely, I agree, Dale, and I know that you agree with this too. The spousal support. I got to be honest with you. I think that to me was 90% of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really was. I think that, I'm very fortunate the fact that my wife's in the same business as I am, and, having her 100% support me in every single thing that I do has been hugely, 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 not just helpful, but also it's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, there are many days where you'll sit and self-doubt will creep in. No matter how confident that you are in front of a camera, how confident that you are in front of an associate, you're going to have self-doubt creep in, and it's those times where you need your spouse the most, or your significant other, roommate, whoever is your support system, where you need them to fall back on to say, you know what, man, you know what you're doing a good job, just stick with it.
Yeah, my wife usually doesn't feed me dinner unless I bring home some, I'm just teasing. I'm
not. Yeah, well, this is really good. I like getting some of this insight. So, let me go ahead and just share with the viewers here how, I briefly talked about it, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the process of how I do things on my end, and I want to hear how it goes on your end of things, being on the voiceover talent portion, because obviously I hire, and hire is kind of a loose term of things,
Sure.
Because it's not necessarily I'm paying you hourly wages, though there is the finished price per hour type option. But all right, so let me, instead of putting the cart in front of the horse, let's go ahead and just talk and just right in order. So what I did was I had a number of books underneath my own brand name, being Dale L. Roberts, and I wanted to find somebody that could narrate almost the entire collection themselves. I wanted just a a brand, if you will, within the audiobook, and I wanted to find a voice that just really matched up what I was looking for, because ideally I would like to narrate my own books, but I'm not an expert at that. I've got the microphone, I got the technology, but I don't have the patience to sit down and do the editing, the mastering, and everything else like that. Hopefully we can cover that as well. Not that I'm going to get you to explain to our viewers, how that's done.
Sure.
But in any event, what I would do is I took a book, and I think we started out with the quotes. Am I mistaken on that?
That is correct.
Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. I was told early on in ACX that quotes books, recipe books, and exercise books don't translate well. Nobody really wants them. And I come to find out that they're actually wildly successful. Audiobook with quotes on it, and you're like, I do. And I'm like, touche. So, at any rate, though, I had the quotes books that I had put out a little over a year ago, and that was how you and I kind of got introduced. Was I put it out there, I put up the actual book, and then I think you ended up finding me, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. When ACX projects are submitted by an author, by a self-publisher, they're put up into what is essentially an open marketplace. Dale mentioned there's a couple of ways that they can be put out there. They can either be put out as a what's called a price per finished hour project, or they can be put out on a royalty share basis, one or the other. And a royalty share basis means that if an author is selected, that they will share the royalties that are generated by that audiobook. So there's this vast marketplace that's available that voiceover talents can go to and submit auditions for any titles that they see out there that might tickle their fancy. So what happened in this particular case was that a quote book was out there. The topic of the quote book was very good. It was to my liking. I saw the audition snippet, sent in an audition, and the rest is history. And we kind of took it from there.
Yeah, the one thing that spoke volumes to me, see, I've done numerous projects through ACX, and I've had some good experiences, and I've had some not so good experiences, and we'll get to that eventually, because I want to talk about the awesome experience that I had with you. Was you're a little different from other narrators. Well, first of all, your voice, and I think anybody can hear right now, you've got an excellent polished voice. It's just perfect for that. But it was your turnaround time that I'm just literally, I handed in to you, and I think you had it back to me like within 2 days. How do you do that so fast?
Well, the ideal is that you will turn and burn them. And turning and burning sounds bad. It sounds like a very lackadaisical way of doing it. But turning and burning means that you take it, you produce a quality, polished, finished project, and you turn it around as fast as possible. Why? Well, the reason is that the faster that you get it out the door at a high quality, the faster the royalties start coming in. Now, if it's a per finished hour project, that's a different ball of wax. And like I said, you've got a vast marketplace with ACX, and you've got potentially hundreds of narrators just like me at various skill levels that can all submit to any title out there. You've got to know, though, if it's a per finished hour title, you're going to get an audition from pretty much every single person. I can almost guarantee it. Because it's real money. It's real money upon completion, rather than having to go in and do the research on the titles and what kind of potential they might have, and some of that we might get into a little bit later. But as far as the turnaround time goes, it's simple self-interest. You want to produce the best quality product possible at the most reasonable price to your customer. In this case, it's a royalty share agreement, so I know exactly what I've got skin in the game wise. And I know I want to turn it around fast, because that means I can move on to my next project, be it another book for the same author, or whatever else I have calendared. And that's how I kind of handle things. It's just on a calendaring basis.
Wow, it was amazing. You worked really, really fast. I put these deadlines that were probably a couple weeks out, and you were getting them turned around. It was so funny because you were so good at it. Eventually, I had to tell you, I'm like, look, man, I take weekends off. I was like, my weekends, I stay away from it. And it worked out beautifully, because you were just like, excellent. I don't need to rush on some of these things. So, but you mentioned finished price per hour. So some people probably new to the audiobook game need to kind of what does finished price per hour mean? I know what it means, but
Yeah,
go ahead and describe it to
absolutely.
us.
Yeah, it's you can think of if you're an entrepreneur that's looking to bootstrap up a self-publisher that would love to get some audiobooks out there, but you don't have a lot of money to do it. I mean, for instance, if you've been writing in your spare time or putting these compilations together in your spare time, and it's just something you want to get out there, and you don't want to spend a lot of money to do it, you can do it via a royalty share basis, which I described in some detail. Now, if you've got a little bit of money behind you and you want to put together something and you want to have a known commodity and a known price point, you want to know exactly what's going into it, and you have a good suspicion that you're going to get a lot of yield on the back end, you might investigate what's called a per finished hour pricing scheme. In ACX, there are certain different levels of per finished hour. I think it's 0 to 50, 50 to 100, and then it kind of goes up from there. My segments might not be exactly right, but what you would expect or what you would hope is that if you're going to put out a per finished hour price for a book, for an audiobook, you're looking at spending X amount per finished hour, exactly as it sounds. So if say you put out $100 per finished hour, it's a 3-hour audiobook, you're paying $300. That money gets paid upon delivery. So you're paying it up front, done. $300 goes to the audiobook producer, you get the finished product from them, you never see each other again probably. You have your finished audiobook, which is fantastic. It's available on audible.com, on iTunes, just as it would be with a royalty share agreement. But the main difference is that if it is wildly successful and over the span of 7 years generates $5,000 or $10,000 worth of royalties, you're still only out $400 or $200 or whatever you spend up front on the production. You're pocketing the rest of it. It's a little more of a hassle up front because you've got a lot more to dig through as far as auditions go. However, the yields can be great if you do the price per finished hour. But it's a big gamble, so you really have to know the segment that you're writing into. You have to know the potential of the title, and those that are more familiar and more polished on the self-publishing end of things might be able to speak better to that. But as a narrator, for me, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other. If I see a title that really interests me that's priced per finished hour, I'll put in an audition for it. But I know that I'm going to be in a deluge of other offers, and my odds of getting that project aren't very good. On the other hand, if I see a really good royalty share project, I'm absolutely going to bid for that because the competition's a little less, but also there's more potential for me as a narrator in the long run. So, it's give me $1 today or $20 over 7 years.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed the 50-50 split because my thought is I would rather have not have to pay any money up front and just share that split because I feel more comfortable because there's less risk involved.
Absolutely.
I could put down say $500 for a 5-hour book, but it may only draw like $100 over the course of the next 5 years, which would really suck. I've seen so it kind of maybe ratchet down just a little bit more of this point here, the finished price per hour. So does an hour-long book take an hour to record then?
That's a very, very good question. For different narrators, different audiobook producers, you're going to see different ratios as far as time, length of book wise versus production time. For myself, as an example, I am a one-man band. I do the production, I do the editing, I do the mastering, all in-house. And it's all done by me, so I don't have any external costs. I don't have any external turnaround times that I have to rely upon. So my hour to hour, I'm probably looking at putting in about 2 hours to 2.5 hours per finished hour of audio. And that's going to include recording, editing, mastering, and then producing and uploading the file. Ratios go up to 3 hours for some, 3.5 I've heard is the target for some. For me, it's 2 to 2.5, and a lot really depends on how my mind's working and if my tongue's tied on a particular day. On some of the quote books where there's a little bit of spacing to catch your breath in between the quotes, I can get those done probably an hour and 15, hour and 30 because there's not much that I have to redo as far as flub ups in the speaking.
Yeah, and the funny thing is this is something I tell a lot of self-publishers and some of the people that I coach. I say, make sure that you go back and review your narrator's work because it's obviously going to be representing your business. And there's been occasions where I've actually had a couple of narrators that have handed in some work, and they forgot to pull some of the punch outs. Of course, the mess up. So they'll be partway reading a sentence, and they go, oh, and then they read the sentence over again, and I've got to send it back to them and say, sorry, you got to fix this at this particular time. Do you have any advice to any self-publishers out there to make that process simpler for you when they submit work?
Absolutely. You can look at it a couple of different ways. As a self-publisher, your narrator that you select is going to act as your last line of defense as an editor. So that's one point to get across. Now, if I'm reading something and the wording is just a little off, if it doesn't flow off the tongue correctly, and I have a good relationship with the publisher, I'm going to make a little adjustment to fix that so it flows a little better off the tongue and it sounds better to the listener. And it could be just a listening versus a reading thing. As far as simplicity goes, editing goes a long way. The better things can be edited up front, the more smoothly it's going to flow off of the narrator's tongue, and the more easy it's going to be for them to read, the fewer errors that you're going to expect. The old adage, you get what you pay for, is not necessarily true with ACX, because you're going to get someone a lot of times that has a lot of experience when you're doing a royalty share project. And I'm one of those examples that I've got a lot of experience. I've made those mistakes in the past. Fortunately, they were 4 or 5 years ago. And I've learned from them, because the last thing you want to do after saying, yeah, I've put in 6 hours on this project, here's your book, is have someone coming back with a punch list that's 3 pages long.
Oh, no.
And I'm not saying I've ever had a 3-page punch list, but but that's the kind of thing that you want to try to avoid as a narrator. You want to be as thorough and as honest and correct about your work up front as you can, and take the time, take the effort that is required to go through and actually clean it up. Like I said, there are some examples where it takes me an hour and a half. There's some examples that it takes me 2.5 hours to totally master the audio. An hour and a half is going to be an example where I know I was on point that day and I hardly missed anything. 2.5 hours is where I just cannot catch a break through an entire read, and I'm making marks the entire time of things I have to go back to fix. So it's just a matter of patience, and it's a matter of from a publishing standpoint, excellent editing up front will save everyone time and frustration in the long run.
Okay, so you got to be honest now.
Uh-oh.
I know there was, at my end of things, it was kind of cool, because I go back and I listen to you, and sometimes I would, put the manuscript up, or, in this instance, like the paperback book, and I put the paperback book up, and I notice you would catch a few little things, and I go, oh! But then there were some things where I'd notice, syntax-wise, you managed to pull it off like a champ. So I guess I'm just making more of a statement than a question than anything. Was, as a self-publisher, it's amazing because you are almost a second line of defense in editing, because you went in there and sometimes I go, ooh, nice, that works way better. And I don't know if it was necessarily something that you had to correct ahead of time or if you just did it on the fly.
Well, a lot of the edits that I do make are on the fly. Now, on the fly, I wouldn't say that it comes straight out of my mouth, word perfect, how it ends up. But as I'm coming up on it, I'll say, maybe we'll do this instead. And then I'll record it both ways, and at the mastering part at the end when I'm editing and cutting everything, I'll go back and I'll listen to both and choose which is best, or maybe I'll re-record it a third time if I need to. But, different narrators, different situations. My way of working, that's how I like to do things, because it makes for a better experience both for the publisher and for the listener. Now, some narrators are very rigid and very much of a word perfect standpoint. They want to read it exactly as it's written because they want it to be true to the word, without any interpretation seen on their end. Like you said, the changes that I make are syntax. They're very, very much just verbiage. It's going to say the exact same thing. It's just going to flow a little differently, and it's going to sound a little more smooth to the listening ear rather than the reading eye.
Yeah, it's so much difference to just read something and hear something. I'm sorry, Kevin, were you getting ready to say something there, buddy? I sound like I interrupted you.
No, I was just like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? Because you could read something, and then if you hear it, totally different. The flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were so many times actually. I think Kevin, I gave you a hard time when you were working on 10 Guiding Principles. I would say, read this out loud, and you'll hear it and you go, oh, okay, and you get back to me and go, oh my gosh, dude, that sounds terrible, and I'm like, it sounds terrible. It reads
it's just,
fine, but when you say it out
well,
loud,
no, it's just because I'm horrible at writing. So that was.
and to think I'm sending Kevin over to you there, Morris. So look forward to.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Hey, you're gonna have fun editing the work. No, I'm just teasing.
So how does your layout look then? I mean, what's your studio like? You don't need to pan your camera around. We don't need to do like MTV Cribs on us here. But how is your layout? What is it like? And of course, how do you prep for a job?
Okay. Well, the funny part of the answer will be my studio is a converted walk-in closet, and it's got just sound deadening material in it. Reason for that is obviously it's economy of space. It's a space that works really well for me, and it's easily set up. I've got some draping that's set up to deaden some of the echoing that you might hear in other folks recording, and that's really the main difference. When you're listening to auditions, if you listen to 4 or 5 different people in a row, if you hear echoing, that's the sign of someone that's probably doing it a little more on a part-time basis, which is not to sound elitist whatsoever. It's just that those are tricks of the trade that you learn along the way, is that you've got to have some sound deadening material up. But yeah, I'm in a converted walk-in closet. I've got a setup with a music stand, comfortable chair, got a microphone on a boom stand with a pop filter over it. It's a very simple setup. The microphone that I use is a USB mic, so it's connected via USB to my laptop where it's recording separately from me, so you don't pick up any noise off the laptop itself. I read using a tablet, so either my iPhone or an iPad. It makes things easier, because if I can pull it up in a PDF format, I can kind of scroll as I'm going along and highlight things as I need to. The highlights I make are where I go back and edit if I've made a mistake along the way. So it very, very, like I said, a very basic, simple setup, but it's very effective and it works well, and has served its purpose so far. Now, as far as how I prepare for a read, what I will do is I'll give kind of a read through of the first few paragraphs of any piece that I'm reading through. I'm not looking for any context per se. I'm not looking for any particular detail or information out of the book. What I'm really getting a feel for more than anything is the writing flow of the writer, and that's going to tell me how I voice the book. If it's more rigidly written, it's going to be kind of a very direct to the point, sentence by sentence read. If there is more I won't say flowery language, but more of a verbose writing style, I'm going to read it as such, and I'll read it with more compassion and things of that nature. But just getting that feel for it. One place that you'll see that, Dale, in your books is when you have a section of your book, and I believe it was in the 3 Keys book that I did.
Oh yeah.
The 3 Keys book, there's a difference between the workout sections of that book, which is a fitness book, and the mental portion of it. The mental portion is read a little more expressively, a little more reservedly than the very rigid read of the exercise routines. So that's just in one book as an example, the difference in reading styles one section to the other.
That's very interesting, and I never noticed it when I was listening to you, but now that you mention it, yeah, you do have a completely different delivery. It's still the same quality voice, but yeah, how you express yourself is way different. How did you learn things like this?
Honestly, trial and error. I read a lot when I was a kid. I've read a lot as an adult through vocation as well as for pleasure. And you just pick up an internal monologue, an internal voice as you're reading through things, and you develop an ear for what you would want to hear as a listener. Ironically, I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've listened to a few, maybe, and one was. I think a Stephen King novel or something like that about 10 years ago. But not to knock Stephen King, love him. a great author. But that's the scope of my audiobook listening expertise. But more than anything, I know how I would want to hear things, and that's how I try to present them in my way of reading.
Interesting. Now, we were talking before we got connected. What type of work have you seen so far being a voiceover narrator? And of course, going into ACX, what kind of work have you seen so far through that?
As far as what I'm doing,
Yeah.
okay. As far as types of work that I do, I actually started doing e-learning presentations, and this is 10, 15 years ago, and I actually did them for the job that I was working at the time. We were looking at outsourcing some of our in-house e-learning voiceovers to an outside company that was going to charge a ridiculous amount of money, which would be ridiculous even by today's standards, if memory serves. And so I just, I took it upon myself. I bought a mic. I downloaded Audacity, which I still use to this day, trained myself how to use it, and the rest is history. Now, since I've been kind of making this pivot as of late, a lot has been of the audiobook flow, and it's been through ACX primarily. Dale, I've done some of your quote books, some fitness books for you. I've also done a lot of nonfiction books, and that's kind of my niche. Everyone has a niche. All narrators do, and if they say they don't, they're lying. You have books that you're good at, and you have books that you're not. I could not read a Harlequin romance novel. It would not sound right. No one would pay to hear me read it. But give me a book on the Civil War, and I can read that to you all day long. But that's my niche. I'm stronger in nonfiction and in instructional books than I am in anything else. I'll read anything. Don't get me wrong, but that's my niche, and that's where I'm strongest at, and that's what I tend to audition for more than anything.
Excellent. Does anybody ever approach you about recording books outside of, obviously I approached you after you did your first few gigs, but is there ever any time that someone goes and they looks you up and asks to work with you?
It's tough. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes on a referral basis, and I obviously welcome all referrals. I love getting referrals. But with the landscape as it is today, with such a wide diaspora of self-publishers and equally as many voiceover talents, it's very hard to have that needle in the haystack moment, because even if you search on ACX, you're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of producers. So you really have to rely on being found. You have to cast a wide net, put out a lot of auditions, and hope for the best. And a lot of times it does lead to repeat work and repeat business down the road. I mean, there's other avenues for voiceover talents as well. Obviously Upwork is a very popular site for bootstrappers and for entrepreneurs that like to take their talents to a freelance market. Upwork has produced, and its predecessor has produced a lot of good leads for me. But right now I'm focusing primarily on ACX.
Nice. And obviously it's really kind of been building up slow but sure over the last, it's been about a month that you and I have worked together. How many titles have we produced so far? Because I just approved 2 more today.
We're up to 14 or 15 now, I think.
Wow.
Something like that. So I know we're definitely in double digits, but it's been fun. We've been making some good progress and turning some good stuff around. So I'm sure anyone listening would be well served by downloading a few copies.
Yes, actually, and if anybody is live and listening to this on the podcast, I tell you what, Kevin, can I speak on our behalf and say, first 50 people that get a hold of us, I'll let them have a pick of any of my books. We will give you a free copy of that. Is that all right for me to say, Kevin?
Absolutely. We have enough codes for that, sir.
Oh, good Lord, yes. This is something I liken to Brewster's Millions. It's like, do you get the complimentary codes as well on your end of things?
I do. I have codes for days, so if you need a code, let me know.
Yes.
Codes for days.
And the terrible thing is, I'll say to people, I'm like, hey, would you like an audiobook? They're like, no, I'm good. But then if I'm like, would you like yeah, you want a paperback? And people are like, yeah, sure. And you're like, yeah, that's going to cost me to give that to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is very cool. Kevin, I've been monopolizing a lot of the time, a lot of the questions. I want you to kind of take over right now, man.
No, it's been fine. I mean, with all the work that you guys have actually done together, it kind of makes sense. Now, I'm going to take a step back. You said Harlequin romance. As far as the romance sector, I feel that you could give Fabio a good voice.
Like I said, if you know, for the audience out there, if you have those self-publishers that are in that genre, it's a phenomenal genre to be in, and there is a lot of demand for it. You know, in ACX, there are plenty of voiceover talents that do it and do it very, very well.
Yeah, I had to kind of just break the ice a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, as far as all the work that you've done for Dale, and obviously I've listened to a few segments of those, and just fantastic. As soon as he auditioned, or you sent your first audition, he sent it over to me. I was like, oh my God, where was this guy? Looking for my books. But beyond the work and stuff that you've done for Dale over the last month, I mean, honestly, there's got to be a time where you're just like putting in 10 to 12-hour days. Has to be. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
I try to limit myself. I mean, one thing that you can do, and you guys know this, and anyone that's listening as an entrepreneur knows this, it is so easy to accidentally fall into an 18-hour day to make up a minimum wage salary. And it happens to everyone starting up. Yeah, and especially if you're working another job, you've got a family to support and to spend time with, things like that. And if you want to consider that part of your 10 to 12-hour day, absolutely. But what I've tried to do is limit myself. My voice can only do so much.
Sure.
And it's just the same as someone that sings for a living. You've got a couple of good, solid hours, and after that, it gets more time is wasted than it is producing. So I would say, in a given average day doing voiceover work, I'm spending probably 6 to 8 hours between probably 2 to 2.5 hours of good solid recording, editing, mastering, uploading. You're looking at 6 to 8 hours total. And of course, that doesn't take into account any other projects that I might be working on the side otherwise. So I try to limit myself and try not to do those 12, 14, 16-hour days. It's very, very tough because it's an easy trap to fall into, and sometimes
Sure.
It's a necessary trap to fall into. But you've got to do the best you can to maintain a work-life balance, even when you don't have to use those cliche terms anymore.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely. So, I mean, with your voice, okay, any type of work that you do, especially being an entrepreneur, you're constantly working on yourself, either your mind, body, writing, whatever the case it is. How do you take care of your voice?
It's a tough call because obviously I live in Kentucky. We have allergies here. I mean, it happens, and I'm as susceptible as anyone, if not more so. So you have to take common sense measures to really protect the assets that you have. I mean, some people, they have financial assets. I have a voice that's an asset, and Lloyd's of London is not going to insure me anytime soon. So I can only do as much, and I can only produce as much as my voice will let me do, and I don't want to lose it. That's another reason why you've really got to cap off those hours that you spend. But otherwise, I just take common sense measures. Lots of rest. Try to be. Don't tell Dale this because he's on here, but try to relax and not exercise too much. Do those things that are just logical common sense steps. Don't strain myself when I'm reading. Herbal tea and honey. It's not a drink for wimps. Sometimes you got to do it. Cough drops go a long way. And also you've got to step away, and you've got to do some extracurricular activities that you enjoy to mentally keep yourself in the game. I'm in a local singing group, choral group. So that's an an activity that involves my voice, but it gives me a lot of pleasure and it gives me a lot of respite from the daily grind, if there is one, in order to keep my mind at ease.
That's one of the questions, honestly, as we were going along. I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, I wonder if he does any singing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, coming out of high school, it's what I thought I wanted to do with my life. And, other factors come into play, bills and whatnot. And as rough as the market can be for voiceover artists, singers don't have it much better. So, it's a necessary evil sometimes. We've got to go into the business life and into the business world. And fortunately, I've found a way to be able to still have the recreation that I look for.
Nice. So what type of music did you say it was?
It's classical choral music. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's something that would put probably 50% to 70% of the listeners on here to sleep if they were to sit through a concert. But it's great for maintaining the range in the voice. So, it's a lot of fun.
Where is your range at? Are you bass?
Yeah, I'm a bass.
Kind of figure just how deep you are. You got that silky voice. So, well,
Okay.
Kevin, keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh no, as far as the voice goes and singing, I was going to say I'm sure you're not out at any metal concerts or anything like that, screaming your head off.
I was hoping that he would join my heavy metal group. We're going to be called Dale and the Dales.
Nice. So so you answered my questions as far as the long days. Again, being an entrepreneur, honestly, you're depending on yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many, you say you go look at auditions. Now, is this something that you do daily? You look for work that's up, or is it daily?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're
Okay.
at least going to review on ACX as an audiobook producer, or voiceover talent. You're going to look on ACX and the other sites as well, including Upwork and other sites like that, for jobs that are posted daily. It's the same as getting in a routine in a business world. You come in, you sit down, you have your herbal tea and honey, you're getting ready to record, you're looking through emails, you're looking through postings, you're looking at auditions that are out there, because as soon as you finish up with the project that you're working on, you've got to fill that next space on the calendar, and you've got to have things going kind of conveyor belt fashion in order to keep the to keep the numbers turning and to keep the dollars coming in, hopefully in the future once these things sell. So it's a very determined process. I mean, it's something that you have to keep up with. You have to be self-disciplined in order to do it, and you can't just rest on your laurels.
Yeah, I was going to say that's something you definitely have to be pretty rigid about. But it's one thing that I will, attribute to all the years and stuff in the corporate world. Your day was rigid,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that gave me some discipline as far as checking emails, getting all that stuff kind of out of the way first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
How many titles? I know you don't have to share if you don't want to, but how many titles do you have on the market?
On the market total for audiobooks, it would be somewhere in the 50 to 60 range. Now, not all of them are under my actual full name. Just like any other producer, sometimes you use pen names, sometimes you aren't credited at all. Sometimes you're just a ghost voice, and it'll be an uncredited effort. And that's honestly probably the largest piece of the puzzle between what is actually out there as Maurice R. Cravens II and what's out there otherwise. Obviously, if you do work through Upwork, I keep beating that dead horse, but a lot of times folks will post audiobooks there, and they'll sell them elsewhere. And that's often the case, is that I'll voice it as the author or as the presenter, and we'll go uncredited, and I'm fine with that. I mean, because through Upwork you're looking at a paid per finish hour basis, and it's one and done. I don't have a vested long-term interest in it, and it's something that in many cases the author doesn't have a lot of interest in sharing any of the promotion with.
Okay.
Nice. If you were to talk to, let's say that I wanted to get into voicing audiobooks or doing some kind of narration, what kind of first steps would a newbie person want to do?
That's a great question. It's a question I've been asked before quite a few times. There's more to it than just the voice. I mean, genetics basically screwed me over in every other way, but they gave me a great voice. And that's great. That's fantastic. But there's more to it than just that. I mean, obviously, you have to have the work ethic. You have to know your tools. What I tell everyone that is even remotely interested in doing voiceover work is first, download Audacity. It's free. It gives you the chance to hook up a microphone and play with it. You're going to learn more that way than you would by going to a course or doing anything else. Download Audacity, play with it. Learn how to manipulate audio, how to edit, how to master, and then take the recording from there. But unless you know all of the steps of the process, from recording to editing to publishing, you're going to be reliant on others. And in a lean industry like voiceover work is, if you're reliant on other facets of the work being outsourced to other folks, it really puts you at a disadvantage, both time-wise and potentially quality-wise. Because you could get poor results on an outsourced edit, and you won't know how to fix them. So, my first advice, start off with whatever microphone you have, learn Audacity, learn how to produce, how to master, how to edit. Then go ahead and update your microphone, get a better microphone, get a boom stand, pop filters, all that good stuff, good set of monitor headphones. But there's so much that is just pointless to do without knowing the basics first.
Yeah, and I imagine, does it take a lot of trial and error to get yourself to that point?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest part of it, and you will get absolutely sick of listening to yourself on a pair of headphones after 2 hours of doing this. I cannot stand listening to my own voice most of the time, but it's how you learn the craft, and it's how you learn how to do it, and it's just repetition, and you're going to make different mistakes every time, and over time you'll learn how to record to easily correct those mistakes. When you first start out, you might make an error, you might flub up a line, and then you keep reading, and you don't give yourself any space in the waveforms to cut and splice in corrections, and it's something that you learn over time. It's just a skill set that you have to pick up.
Nice. You've given some good first steps for a newbie narrator. Now, one thing that you'd mentioned before about as far as advice for self-publishers that are approaching you, and getting good editing and such. What should a new self-publisher who's looking for a narrator, say on ACX or even Upwork, what should they be looking for when they're listening to an audition or making sure work is according to their standards?
Well, that's a great question. And what I would recommend, simply speaking from the voiceover side, as what I try to have as my the meat of my core functionality, what I like to put out there as my product, is be very open and honest about turnaround time. Be very open and honest about what you expect. And that needs to come out up front before the offer is even issued, because you'll have the opportunity to send a message back and forth to the narrator to ask questions, get clarification, things of that nature. Turnaround time is key. You'll get new producers that will overload their calendars and will try to work 16-hour days to make up for it, recording for 8 hours, and their voice is garbage, halfway through the day. And it's not that they're lacking natural talent, it's just that over the course of that tough work schedule, they're just getting annihilated. But you need to ask turnaround time. You need to be honest and upfront with them and say, this is when I expect it, this is what I need. And that conversation can be had in a very professional and upfront and cordial basis. But honesty is key up front. Be very clear about what you expect as far as edits go, as far as timing, as far as all of that stuff. It's just being an upfront and clear communicator more than anything.
Nice, nice. That's something I've definitely learned. Was I always wanted to make sure I set a timeline that was appropriate for all the voiceover people. I was going to talk a little bit about an experience that was a little bit more sour on ACX, but I think I'll save that. Or at least spoil everything. I'll say this much, that I do discuss it on my channel over on YouTube channel on Self-Publishing with Dale L. Roberts, and it's actually going to release sometime about June. But I made sure to say, this is not Maurice R. the second I'm talking about. I'm like, this is not. And the other thing too, hopefully I was wanting to get out of you was, how should a self-publisher listen to the product? Should they just put it on their computer and just listen as that, or do you think like earbuds or headphones?
Invest in a good, solid pair of studio headphones. That is a self-publisher that's looking to outsource to or partner with a voiceover artist like myself. Buy a good pair of studio monitor headphones. You don't have to spend a ton of money. You can buy a pair for $100 or less that are perfectly adequate. The pair that I'm wearing right now are Sennheiser. Sennheiser's a great brand. They're over-ear headphones. They cup over and basically are noise isolating but not noise canceling. So you get true audio with as much outsized noise blocked out as you can get. The reason you want to listen through that kind of a headphone is simply due to the fact that if you've got someone that's listening to this on an audiobook, they could have it plugged into their car audio system. They could have it cranked up so they can hear it, and they're going to hear every hiss and pop that you can imagine, every piece of air conditioning noise or anything like that that pops into the background, which on a standard set of headphones or earbuds you're not necessarily going to hear. But on a higher quality headphone, you will hear that background noise once it's really cranked up. It's the little things, but it could be the little things that are the difference between a 1-star review and a 5-star review for some people. And I've seen it happen where they'll drop a 1-star bomb on you just because they can hear some air conditioning noise that's fainter than you can even imagine, at some random part of the audiobook. And that was one of the mistakes I had to learn from when I was early on in my voiceover career.
Wow, blasted for air conditioning. That's something. See, I typically, what I was doing was, here's these headphones I've heard more times than most any other headphone. Well, probably next to your headphones. But in any event, I always just try to listen. This is one of the issues that it kind of grinds me is when I hear somebody's lip smack and they're like. It's like that lip smacking drives me nuts, and I'll hear it on some of the audiobooks because I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and more recently I've been listening to them while I work out. So, yep, I've been working out to listening to you, by the way. So I don't do the exercises along with you. Sorry, man. But I typically will listen to that, the lip smacking sometimes, and then if somebody doesn't have a good, well, I'm sitting there pointing at my pop filter, but. If somebody doesn't have a good pop filter, let me see if I can just carefully turn. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah, I've got a Rode microphone because I had every intent to go down the narration alley, and this is something that hopefully I hope you agree with. But my mentor in the business and self-publishing, he's been uber successful. Jason Brock told me he's in his voice, he's like, bro, you know how to do that stuff? I was like, not really. He's like, well, continue to put out content and have somebody else do it. So. Maurice, I think you have Jason to thank for all those things I sent to you. Because I was just like, all right, so now I've got this really nice, fancy microphone, and it's only for podcasts.
Yeah, but man, and your videos you set up, I tell you what, man, they sound fantastic. So not a waste of money.
Yes, and everybody can actually hear me when I break wind as well.
So easy enough to edit out if it's not live.
Yeah. So this is a little funny story. Accepted an audition. This was a couple weeks ago, Dale. Remember I sent it over to you. Started out fantastic, Morris. I mean, this lady was amazing. And then all of a sudden she goes, I don't know where we're going with this. Right off she was reading and she goes, I don't know where we're going.
I was wondering because he sends it to me without saying a single word here, Morris. He's like, check this out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought I was like, literally, I put the headphones on. I'm like, listening to her. I'm like, don't accept this woman. I'm like, this is like hiring an editor that has a bunch of like typos inside their description, their actual application. So, but it
was funny.
Yeah, the voiceover talent. You were great. You sent in an audition. Yeah. I was like, money. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
The one piece of advice that I would give anyone that was a self-publisher about ACX auditions or auditions anywhere: do not accept a canned, pre-recorded reel or a pre-recorded piece of audio or a demo from someone in place of the text that you've uploaded to ACX. That would be the first red flag. It's just basically they're spamming you. They're spamming all the auditions the same way. They're sending out this demo reel, and it's a very lazy way of doing it. And I'm not saying that it's not a qualified person that's doing it. But you really need to know that the person, first of all, is reading and respecting your request enough to read it, and second of all, is going to read it in the skill or not skill, but the fashion that you would love for it to be read in. So always, if given the chance, listen to a verbatim audition off of uploaded text, and skip the reels. The reels are a good introduction, but they're not going to win a job for you, and they're not necessarily going to be the best judge of talent for a good working relationship going forward.
Yeah, it's amazing actually. It's so funny that you mentioned that because actually I've had some people that send me the pre-canned things, and my thought is I can just go over to your profile and look at those things. Why didn't you give me my audition? I typically just throw them straight out. They already, there's I don't know if you've ever seen it on like what it looks like on our end, and maybe one of these times we can do like a shared, like a video screen, but there's actually a like and dislike feature for me as the self-publisher. And for someone like you, I would hit like, and you get sent over to a folder because there's like, maybe, and dislike. Maybe is where everybody already goes into. But, and then you send them over to a dislike folder, and the narrators will never know that. I as a self-publisher get to see that. But I'm glad you brought that tip up, and hopefully anybody who's looking to become a narrator, listen to him.
Yes.
Don't send me your canned garbage. I can go over to your profile and listen to that. I want to hear what you sound like presenting my stuff. So, but man, guys, our hour went really, really fast. I said we were going to finish up about 5 minutes to the hour. I think we're already over the hour. So, Maurice, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and your very busy schedule. How can someone get in contact with you?
Well, there's a couple quick and easy ways. Through ACX, you can look me up. It's Maurice R. Cravens II. The easiest way to find me on ACX is actually just to go to audible.com, search for Dale's books, and you'll see me listed as the narrator on there. That way you get a good pass-through from Dale onto my profile, and then you can take it from there. To get in touch with me directly, Twitter is really easy way to get in touch with me, and this will throw a little wrench in the works. You're going to figure out what the R kind of stands for. My Twitter handle is @Randy, R-A-N-D-Y, Cravens, C-R-A-V-E-N-S, on Twitter. I'm on there tweeting about totally non-voice related stuff, but if you want to connect with me, Twitter is a really quick and easy way to do it. It's the way I recommend more than anything, because on my phone I can always get notifications. So feel free to ping me on Twitter, and I'll be happy to follow you back. And if you need to direct message me or would like to talk to me about a project, that's the best way to do it.
Wonderful, wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing some of that information. And Kevin, any last questions, buddy?
No, honestly, just thanks for your time. I mean, what a lot of great insight, and what a great voice. And I wish you, unlimited success, and hopefully, with you coming on here with us tonight, hopefully this floods you with work for days. Hopefully, I hope. So.
Hey, I'm open to it, so I appreciate it, you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks to your listeners for joining in for this hour. I hope it was informative for them, and if there are any other questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome, very good. Thank you again, Maurice. So those of you that actually are tuning in, if you're over in any of my mastermind groups and such, if you do want to get a hold of him, remember Maurice is actually spelled M-A-U-R-I-C-E, or you can find him on any of my workout plan books or the quotes books. So that's a good way to get a hold of him. I can't tell you exemplary work. He'll over-deliver every single time. I can promise you that. So thank you very much on behalf of Bootstrap Businessmen, and everybody have yourself a good night and good day.
Please support the show by simply shopping at Amazon through the link in the show description. Every time you make a purchase through the provided link, a small percentage of sales goes back to support the show. There's no additional cost to you, and it greatly helps us out. Simply go to the link, bookmark it in your browser, and do your shopping on Amazon while you support the Bootstrap Businessmen podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Bootstrap Businessmen.